around the nation, across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we're proud to be here this morning on Facebook, and of course our show has been going on here since 1998, and it's going as strong as ever.
I got a question for you that just occurred to me, Mike. Is this year a leap year in February?
Yeah, it is a leap year.
So we got 29 days this month.
29 days this month. You're exactly right. Ladies and gentlemen, on a very sad note this morning, a legend, a true legend in this community and the state of Alabama and actually across the country, Dr. John M. Long, the great one, the greatest bandmaster to ever live, died yesterday, and one of the sad moments maybe in my life and a lot of people's lives, because he was just one of my favorite people.
What a life he lived, Mike. I think you'd agree with me, and I know my dad agreed with me, that he was one of the most influential people that ever lived in Troy.
Oh, there's no question about it. No question about it. And what a great man. And he's the kind of guy that made you think that you were his best friend. Everybody felt that way.
We were talking off air before the show started about, there's just some people that always, you can spend 3 minutes with them, and when those 3 minutes are over, you feel better about your life and your day. And he was one of those people that had that.
I was listening to the radio coming over here, and they were playing, well, not Dixie, but the fanfare. That was the most unbelievable fanfare in the world, the Troy University fanfare when they came out on the field and everything. And then they were playing the fight song, the song that Johnny Long wrote. And man, if you don't have chill bumps in your back after hearing that and thinking about him and what he did for bands in the country, he's the one that brought the national, not the state, not the local, but the National Drum Masters Hall of Fame, or Bandmasters Hall of Fame, is located right here in Troy, Alabama. And to me, and I could be corrected here, I think it's the only Hall of Fame National Hall of Fame that is located in Troy, Alabama.
I've always heard that, and I'm sure it's true.
And of course, he brought that and so many other things. When he came to Troy, things started happening, man. And when that band, they came out there and wore those spats at first, and then they wore the what are the little hats?
I don't know what they're called. No.
They're called, I don't know exactly either. You on the air? Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Long died last night, Mike. The great one.
He did.
What did he? All right, now you're about as laid back as it get. What did he do for you?
Hey, Dr. Long?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was providing, great entertainment for the city of Troy and Troy University and fans all over the Southeast. The marching band is known one of the best in the country, and something that Troy was, extremely proud of.
And of course, he made everybody feel good, didn't he?
I always enjoyed hearing him speak as well. He was always, a great guy to hear talk, and I hate it. I really do. The 90 years of life, that's a great life.
The reason he's saying that he loved to hear him speak, when he was growing up, almost every Thursday during football season, we'd go, like you take your children places, we would all go over to the stadium and watch the band practice. And then during either before or after they practiced, hey, he lectured to them over and over and over about being the best. Hey, you're the best band in the world, and you're the best. You play the best clarinet in the world. He made everybody think that they were great, and he made them great. No question about it.
Well, let's talk about some of his influence right off the bat. I don't know if we know the number, but I've heard approximately 400, give or take, of his former students went on and became band directors themselves in high school and college.
There are at least that many.
So he influenced those people, and then think of how many students those 400 band directors have touched in their lives. And then, of course, the band was responsible for probably more people attending Troy University than anything else, without question. I mean, people came to Troy to play in the band, and then their children came to Troy because they played in the band, and then the band directors I just spoke of influenced their top students at their high schools all throughout the South to come to Troy. So, without question, the best hire that Ralph Adams ever made was one of his first when he hired Dr. Johnny Long. I think he was the band director at Robert E. Lee High School.
Robert E. Lee High School.
And he was well known and beloved in Montgomery when he came.
Oh, they hated to see him go. They hated to see him go. They really did. No question about it. And
that was 1964 or 5.
That's right, because I had just started at Troy. It was my first year at Troy.
Legendary band directors at Auburn and Alabama. I'm sure they've had them, but I don't know the names. Johnny Long's the only one I ever knew the name of.
One of them's names was Booty Hinton, Colonel. But hey, listen, they bowed down to Johnny Long. Hey, I don't care if they were at Alabama or Auburn. They bowed down to Johnny Long. He was the best. He was a great one.
And the band, would play at half times at all these big bowl games and all-star games and marching presidential inaugurations and huge parades. So they were the roving ambassadors for Troy University.
He was a great one, whatever superlative you want to use. I think that would be how you would recognize him. And, of course, one of the great men of all times. And I listened to Ralph Black. Of course, Ralph's in a hospital in Birmingham. And he played in Johnny Long's band in the mid-50s. And, at Robert E. Lee High School. And, of course, he left Robert E. Lee and went and played for the Auburn Knights at Auburn University. But everybody, and I don't mean to be sacrilegious, but they bowed down to him. He was the very, very best.
Well, we probably overuse the word legend, but he was a legend in Central Alabama, in Troy, in the state, and in the nation, maybe.
And you're right, and his legacy will live on. And
will he be buried on campus?
That was done a long time ago. I hope they do. Right next to Dr. Adams.
I was taking my kids on one of our ride-arounds last weekend, I think, and we went to the Sorrel Chapel and visited the resting place of Dorothy and Ralph Adams, and right next to it was already the markers for...
See, right, a lot of people don't know that, and you went right to it.
For Dr. Long, and for one day, he is Dr. Long's wife, lovely, beautiful, sweet wife.
So that's confirmed. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, well, I think that's been done a long time ago, and let me tell you, I can't think of anybody any more worthy to have to be buried there.
I don't think anybody's saying one word about that. I think it's fitting.
Exactly right. And again, our hearts and our prayers go out to Mary Lynn and all of the family and all of the friends and all of the folks that served under the great one for so many years. Now, let me tell you, I threw something out there to you about me, but it'd be hard to pick over Johnny Long and Leon Hillier as my favorite people that I've ever known in my life. But they were just great people.
I didn't know him near as well as you, but every time I was around him, he bragged about me in my little newspaper or some story I'd written. And then my dad was an old ex-jock football player and oil man that became in the recycling business, and he would just brag about my father and, the history books he had written and how much he loved him. And you just made you feel 10 feet tall when you hear these things.
You're right. He made you feel great. And that
and apparently we were not everybody that came across Dr. Long had the same experience.
And I tell you, it won't ever be a day that I don't ride down that street and ride by the buildings that are named after him, the street that's named after him. And
well, you interviewed him pretty recently. Maybe y'all can re-air that sometime this week.
I don't know where it is right off the bat, but
I mean, I know you interviewed him less than a year ago.
You said he was still going to Rotary Club.
Oh, yeah.
And I know I would see him at First Methodist Church.
Yeah. He's very patriotic too. He, boy, I tell you.
Where did Johnny Long live in Troy? I don't even know. Did he live near the university, or where did he?
You know where the street Dr. Colley lived on Tip Colley?
South Hillcrest Boulevard.
He lives right
street.
down the street.
He lives 4 doors down from me.
Yeah. If you came down Murphy Street and up the hill to
turned right by the Canes house.
That's right. You take a left and you drive
right
into him.
CF and Miss Rowland's house, and then you'd run right. It was the old Boatner house.
That's right.
My mother grew up on that street, and now the Longs didn't move there until I was out of college, so they didn't live there.
Yeah.
But they've lived in Hillcrest for a long time.
Yeah, that's right. And like you said, if you were going down the hill at Murphy Street, down the hill to Hillcrest, be your first left.
It's a beautiful house.
Oh, it is beautiful home. And if you drove, you could drive straight into Dr. Long's house, no question about it.
It's got the driveway is still brick.
Yeah. All right, now I'm gonna tell you.
Where did his love of music come from? Where did he attend college? Do we ever?
Jacksonville State, Mike. He went to Jack State, and he was loyal to Jack State. He played in the band at Jack State. And, you know, I met Mary Lynn, don't you? Mary Lynn was one of his students when he taught high school band. He was a band director, and I'm trying to think of this place where he was when they married. I will say this. I'm gonna go out and say this now. I don't know what the plans are, or you know, how it's going to be laid out. This will be the largest funeral in the history of Pike County. You watch. Let me tell you, they'll all come back. Thousands of them will come back that he touched.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands.
Yes, they need to.
I mean, this is a great one, ladies and gentlemen, and I you know, and I'll keep throwing that out, and that is probably is you couldn't say anything better about anybody than calling him the great one. And
well, the only thing that
I call Sheila Jackson. The only other great one I call is Sheila Jackson.
Yeah, she is. Well, you know, he's 95, and so, you know, a lot of his former students are now deceased too. That's the only.
That's right. A lot of them are, yeah. But just think of the thousands and thousands of young people that he touched, and grown people alike, and.
You know what I think about Mike? I always played team sports, so I never had the experience of being a part of a band. But boy, I had a lot of friends that were. And one thing that comes through in talking to them is how close knit you become with everybody that's in the band with you. You're with them for at least 4 years, hours and hours a day. They practice just as many hours as the sports teams, and so the definitive, most remembered event in their high school or college careers is being a part of the band program.
Yeah, no question about it.
And what a great experience that must have been for Dr. Long's marching band. And we're talking about the marching band, what he's known for, but they also had concert bands.
Oh, the wonderful concert band. I mean, he had several bands that he was, you know, he brought to Troy, and his orchestra, especially on Veterans Day. I would never miss a Veterans Day presentation. I would never miss a Sound of the Season presentation.
They were awesome.
I mean, everything he touched, it was the best.
And they would give those concerts in Troy, but then they'd give them in Montgomery.
But you take, you take somebody like Bill Rice Sr., your daddy, and Marcia, your mother. You know, they walked to different drummers in Troy. You know, they had their own friends and so forth. And of course, you know, they loved Troy University and so forth because of what it did for our community and the great music. But what I'm saying, they would step aside and honor Dr. Long just like anybody else would.
Well, Dad's written 3 history books. He ghost wrote Ralph Adams. He wrote a book about the most influential people in the history of Troy, and then he wrote the city of Troy's official history. And man, you just read the accounts of Dr. Long, and you'll see how much weight Dad puts on his life.
Yeah, no question about it. I remember I was a freshman in college when he came to Troy in 1965, the 1965 football team. I remember it very well. And then '66 was when Billy Atkins came, and then you had Billy Atkins and Johnny Long, and
that was it.
yeah.
And then they changed the nickname from the Red Wave to the Trojans, and man, we were off and running.
Yeah. Now the person that had a lot to do with that was.
When did Long officially step down as band director? Like in the early 2000s?
Yeah.
I think like the early 1990s.
I don't know exactly, when he stepped down, but and then of course some great guys came right behind him. No question about it.
Thinking about bands and the impact that band directors have on people's life, just like a impact that a beloved coach has on your life.
Yeah.
I've always heard stories about Dr. Mall or Herman Mall.
Yeah, he was a great one.
That was the band director of Troy High School for 40 years, I think. And just the reverence that all of his former band students have for him. And the life lessons that he imparted.
Yeah.
And, so Dr. Long was just this on a bigger stage.
Yeah. There's the Bandmasters Hall of Fame is located right there on campus at Troy, and they also honor all the high school band directors, and Herman Mall was one of them, and he's in that hall, and he loved. He recognized everybody that had anything to do with band on a daily basis. He always said something nice to say. I've never been around him when he said anything other than applaud somebody or rave over somebody. William Davis said something about him one day. Dr. Long just made everybody feel good. He made everybody feel like they were important, that's just his knack. And
that's what, William's brother, the late Green Davis, was one of those people in my mind that just you couldn't spend 5 minutes around him without feeling better about yourself.
It wouldn't be a bad thing to do today is to touch on some of the great ones, like a Leon Hillier, who was a great coach and great mentor and was loved by so many people.
Chase Riddle was right.
Chase Riddle, one of the most humble people I've ever known in my life, and of course, and Johnny Long would say the same thing about it. He and Leon Hillier were very good friends.
I'm not surprised to hear that.
Of course, Johnny Long was a great Rotarian too. The Rotary Club meets today, and everybody there will be humbled by the loss of Johnny Long. But he was one great Rotarian.
Well, I hope the Messenger...
Only when he was very, very sick did he miss a Rotary meeting.
I hope the Messenger considers doing a special publication honoring his life.
Hey, let me tell you, and they'll sell a lot of advertisement for that, too. Who would turn down an advertisement to talk about Johnny Long?
I would love to work on something like that, to sell the ads and write the stories and come up with the story ideas.
And what I'd say, every year, at least 300 members of the band, and he did it for, he was from Troy from 65 to at least 95, that Troy.
Probably about 30 years as the band director.
And
he was the band director emeritus, and he was the dean of the whole School of Arts and Sciences.
Up until, not too long ago, He loved Troy, I know that. He loved his university, and when I know the story about how they went after him, and the city of Montgomery tried their best to keep him. They threw out a bunch of money. They said, "Johnny, don't leave us, don't leave us." Of course, he was the renowned band director for Robert E. Lee's band, and
the story Dad tells in one of his books, Mike. How Troy folks came to know of Johnny Long. You've talked often about this Troy High School, the time Troy High School played Robert E. Lee in football. Little old Troy playing big old. My dad played in a couple of those ball games.
That's right.
Probably 15, 20,000 people at the Crampton Bowl watching those games.
Yeah.
But what everybody still talks about and remembers is one of those halftime performances. The Robert E. Lee Band did their whole performance to honor Herman Mall. They duplicated his dance, his steps, and everything. And it was such a gracious class move and such and that I think that's when everybody said, probably put a bug in Dr. Adams' ear. This is who we want to lead our band program at Troy University.
And you're exactly right. He raved over people like Johnny Long, and like I said, you can go through that Hall of Fame, and everybody that's pictured there are not members of the Hall of Fame. A lot of them are members of the Alabama Hall of Fame, and then of course the National Hall of Fame is located.
And isn't that a beautiful building right there on the University Avenue?
Well, I tell you, and he was just a great man. He had so much humor about him, and he was such good sports. Everybody was always trying to emulate him. I reckon that word is the word that you use. They get up there and get up there in front of the. Let me just say this: John Philip Sousa wrote "The Stars and Stripes Forever." I wish we could give you that. That was by far Johnny Long's favorite hymn, the Stars and Stripes Forever. And only John Philip Sousa, considered the greatest band master of all time, would the guy right behind him playing the Stars and Stripes Forever would be Johnny Long.
Boy, they could kill it.
And they would get up and they would emulate him. Look like the way all his movements, and he loved it. He loved there's the 2 or 3 guys that really made everybody just fall out of their seats, because they could show themselves looking just like Johnny Long when he was
fascinated by band directors, how they do it and learn it. I mean, do they have to know a little about every instrument, right? I mean,
that's right. But the Stars and Stripes Forever, he made. Listen to this. He went to Nixon. Hear this now. Johnny Long, the band director at Troy, went to Nixon and said, "We need for the Stars and Stripes Forever to be our national song, our national band song." And sure enough, he did it. But he went to the President of the United States to get it done.
And he could get an appearance.
And because of Johnny Long, the nation's favorite song is "The Stars and Stripes Forever," and nobody could do it
about
better.
15 or so years ago, I remember CBS Nightly News on their 6 o'clock news broadcast did a big long feature on Johnny Long.
Mike, you were talking about hearing him speak, and many times Mike would be out there, and my kids would be running around in the bleachers, and this was in the early '80s and early mid-'70s that they were doing this, and they heard him speak, and he was no different than Bear Bryant, and people like that are great leaders. Man, he talked about being the best. He talked about saying, "Hey, you're the best. You're the best drum major in this country right now. You got to believe it. You got to know it. And you can play the best flute in the country. You can play the best drum in the country. You're the best band in the country. Show it. Hey, you're the best. You're the best. You're the best." That's the kind of speeches he would make. Hey, I believe you're the best. Hey, you represent the sound of the South, the greatest band that ever was ever assembled.
He believed in hard work and practice.
And our biggest rival was not Alabama, was not Auburn. It was the Jacksonville State Band. Boy, what a rivalry! Of course, they're great. Hey, anybody says the Jacksonville State Band is not great, they don't know what they're talking about. They march 500 people now. They have a great program, but none, ladies and gentlemen, none was greater than Johnny Long's Sound of the South. And I love the fanfare.
And then it was
here's the sound of the South.
And then the majorette.
Who's been in the game knows they play for 3 hours or 2 hours after every football game, and there's thousands of people.
Oh yeah, you wonder. You really wonder how many of the people came to hear the band or watch the football game. About half of them wanted to watch the football game.
Well,
The band.
The band never lost a game.
The band never lost the game. You're exactly right.
Well, if you got 300 people in the band, and they've got a mother and the father, and so there's at least 600 people that probably came to the game.
And there was so much rivalry. Like we would never miss a Jacksonville State Troy game because the bands hated each other and the teams hated each other. It always seemed like it was raining on a day like that. But boy, they would fight. They would go at it back and forth. And the thing they did that made me so mad, made everybody else mad, they kept doing this. Dum 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 dum. Dum 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 dum. Mickey Mouse, boom boom. Mickey Mouse, boom boom. But their band and our band just went at it. It would be great to see them go at it again. Those bands, they were something.
I do miss that.
But Johnny Long, though, hey, it was you talk about a Bear Bryant. Hey, he was the Bear Bryant of bandmasters in this country. Because, like you said earlier, he produced hundreds and maybe even thousands of band directors across the country from some level, junior high, middle school, high schools, colleges.
Well, it's like Coach Bryant.
Band directors.
Coach Bryant's influence is still being felt because his former players are still coaching, some of them. And then the people they coach influence other people who became coaches. So think about.
I mean, the only still coaches is Joey Jones, baby.
Well, I think John Mitchell at the Steelers might still be coaching. I'm not sure.
No, head coach. You're talking about head coaching or what?
Well, what really the point I'm making is that all of those coaches influence their own coaches who are now coaching. So all these 400 band directors that Johnny Long trained, they've trained and influenced people underneath them that have become band directors, but those people are still doing the exact same things that Johnny Long taught, that were drilled into him. So he will always live on through, the lessons of the people that came before him.
You look.
Has there ever been a funeral at Memorial Stadium in the football stadium? I don't know one.
No, let me tell you, there was one. I'll tell you who it was. At one time, Troy had a principal named Dr. Weldon Smart, was the principal at Troy High School back when Troy High School was located over on Elm Street. They might have already started maybe 1 year at the new school that was built where it is now. But Dr. Weldon Smart was at a band boosters meeting at old Troy High School, and he had a heart attack and he died right there in the room amongst all those people. He was a great man, and his funeral was because I went to it as a young man, a young child, and I'm almost positive. I think I am positive that his funeral was at the stadium. But it wasn't near this.
I don't even know if the funeral will be at the stadium.
But you know what?
If the band's going to be involved in the funeral, I was thinking maybe it would be there.
Mike, let me tell you this. I look forward to this. Oh, you're talking about greatness. Oh, let me tell you, there's no question in my mind that it'll be in the stadium because it's going to take that many people to get in there. It wouldn't surprise me if that the stadium be overwhelmed with people.
Well, you can have it at Trojan Arena, can you?
You could do it at Trojan Arena. That would hold 5,000, maybe 6,000, counting the floor. That might be a suggestion. I mentioned earlier, Mike, that I think this will probably be the largest funeral in Troy, Alabama history. I really believe it will.
I wonder what is the biggest.
Well, and of course, there's been some big ones, and some people highly recognized, no question about it. But just think of that sound of the South at that funeral, and just think of the thousands and thousands and thousands of young people that were in his band that would more than welcome the fact that they could drive over and be at the Grand Master's funeral. A band.
They were wearing some kind of decal with Johnny Long JL written on it as well.
It was the football team needs to as well, really.
Oh, they would. Hey, listen, let me tell you. Let me just say this. Let me say this right here, and I'm gonna clear something out right here. Very rarely does this right here ever happen at any college in the country, or any program in the country. When you talk about what is important to your university, what are the elements that are important to your university? At Auburn, you got the Auburn football team, and right down here, you got the Auburn band. At Alabama, you got the football team up here as far as importance or toward their university. It's important, of course, but the football team overwhelms it, and the $1 million band's down here. At Troy, you got the Troy University football team and their athletic program, and the Troy University and their band program right here, side by side. No question about it in importance to our university. Do you agree?
I agree without that.
But think of any other band. Now, Jacksonville State's might be sort of like that, but not many.
And I don't think Jacksonville, they do have a great band, but I don't think they have the reputation and their band is important as to them.
No, I don't think. I'm not trying to compare them as even. I'm just saying that there's some other bands that are big time, at their universities, but none of them bigger than Troy.
And you got to think about where it was when he took over. I mean, what kind of band program did Troy even have before Johnny Long came? Did they even have a band?
Oh, yes, they did, and it was not a bad band. It just wasn't a big band. Let me tell you this. Our band director was a graduate of Ohio State University, and the band looked just like the Ohio State University marching band.
That's a good band to emulate there.
Have you ever heard about Dot and I?
Of course.
All right, but they wore spats. You know what a spat is?
No.
You ever seen it's what they wrap around their ankle. It's not the actual shoe itself, but you wrap it around the shoe. It's white. And that whole conference, that Mid-American Conference, all of them wear spats. And Troy band wore spats. And the Troy fight song was the same fight song that Ohio State had.
Really?
Yeah, for years and years, that was it. When Johnny Long got here, Dixie, they played the entire song Dixie. And, some people got real upset because they stopped playing Dixie. But what he did, he came up with the fanfare. It's the greatest fanfare in the world when Troy's band comes down on the field. And then when they get the part where they actually start playing Dixie, they play another patriotic song.
It's got a little elements of Dixie.
It does, yeah. It sounds like they're fixing to play Dixie, but they're actually going to play another very patriotic song.
I worked at the Chamber of Commerce many years ago, and I remember Troy was going to play a football game on TV back in the 1AA years, which was a rare thing for Troy. And I guess it was when ESPN or ESPN2 was televising it, and so they had to sell some commercials, and the city of Troy bought a commercial.
Yeah.
Or two. But we had to have a commercial, and so they let me. I said, "Well, I'll do the thing. I can come up with a cool commercial." The writer in me, and so I thought I did come up with a cool commercial. It was a pretty girl co-ed saying, "Maybe you remember our name, but you can't quite remember our face." That was the girl saying it, and then we hit a collage.
I like that, yeah.
Then you hit a collage of all the neat things that happened in Troy and the town.
Yeah.
Fireworks and stuff at the Sportsplex and parades. But my music background to that whole commercial was Dr. Long.
Dr. Long,
So
yeah.
fanfare. It
Exactly.
really made the commercial.
Dum 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 dum. You know, but they stopped and play that other song.
And I'll tell you who did.
Let me tell you this:
I think
Dr. Long
Steve, you know,
never had a prejudiced bone in his body. He
all
was
credit
loved
to. I
everybody.
came up with the idea for that commercial. You know who executed it, of course. Steve Camp. I said, this is some of the video scenes I'd like. Troy Cable had them all, and he put the commercial together.
Do we have that now? Do we have any of that?
That would be.
Of
That
course,
would be 25 years ago.
of course, and the fanfare is just next to none. It's just fabulous, and it's in good taste, and
there's one part in there
and
where
I think everybody's proud of it.
Yeah, there's one part in there. There was this little suspense. There was a.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I don't believe any band in the country does that. It's a thrill. Look, whoa, I wish we could play it. Big football fan. He loved Troy football.
Now that's not the song we're talking about. You know, but that's
well,
another one.
yeah,
That's another great one. Yeah.
And I don't know if we have the words, for the fanfare like we did do this, the fight song. But he wrote that fight song. I want to say he was in Europe when he wrote it.
Oh man, what a great fight song.
He traveled all over the world doing clinics and being on judging contests and speaking to bands all over the country. No telling how many bands in this country and outside of this country did he affect with his
Well, you know,
music.
another thing we can talk about is think of all the bands that have come to Troy, the high school bands.
The Southeastern Band Festival. Now, that was started by Mr. McClendon here in Troy at Charleston High School. He's the one that started that. Of course, Johnny Long supported it.
And then the band would go to all these band festivals, which are huge. I mean, some of them have 20, 40, 50, or 100 bands. Yeah. And then the last band to play that they closed out the band festival with would be the Sounds of the South.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize this, that on a Friday night, where it was a high school band, so we're in different towns. Let's say Charles Simpson had a game in Mobile. Well, what they do, they'd go to Murphy High School in Mobile and do the halftime show and spend the night and go on down to Louisiana for a ball game.
That's what I'm talking. That is the roving ambassadors in the face of your university, and they were like, from what I gather, when the Sounds of the South played, they were like the Beatles, man. Yeah. Everybody stopped and were riveted.
It seems like the band doesn't travel like they used to anymore.
They don't. It costs so much money now. Do you know that that if you went to LSU or you went to Mississippi State or Auburn or Florida State, you would, let's just say your band had 400 members, you would have to pay the actual cost of a ticket for every one of those people. Think how much money that is. Not counting the cost that it would take to spend the night or the travel. Let's see, how many take 10 buses?
Yeah.
I think the last time I counted, Troy's band takes 10 Trailways type buses, 56 seat.
That's not right that they make them pay for,
they
for
do.
the tickets.
The big schools do.
I want to say the first game when we became Division I against Nebraska, I want to say they made that trip.
Yeah.
That was the most unreal thing in the world. When we played, you and I were there, when we played Nebraska, the great Nebraska, who had something like 300 straight sellouts. And ladies and gentlemen, we're sitting,
Eric Crouch at quarterback that won the Heisman.
That's right. We scored the first touchdown, and we led them 7-0. Then I turned around and heard something. Bang. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the sound of the South Marching Band. 325 band members marching into Cornhusker Stadium in Nebraska. And those folks that turned around and said, and you know what? They raved all day long. They were listening. They'd never heard a band like that. And his band was unusual, had an unusual sound. Let me tell you a couple of things that were different about his bands. One thing, he loved the horns. It was a brass. They used a lot of brass, what we call brass. And then, of course, he was proud of his drum corps. But he's probably the first bandmaster ever to use an electric guitar on the field. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever noticed they have a guy with electric guitar?
Yeah. I knew
Johnny Long's innovated that. That was.
Well, I thought that might have been Dr. Long's successor, but that was Dr. Long.
No, that was Dr. Long. He started that. Of course, he started a lot of things. I'm sure a lot of his people were involved in it with him, but a lot of the things that he did.
What I remember is the big long line of majorettes, and they were all beautiful, buddy. And then you had about 2 or 3 feature majorettes that were feature twirlers that were just amazing. All the things they could do with a baton. And one of the best and most famous was my classmate and good friend Rhonda Gunner. That was Herman Gunner. She was awesome.
Let me tell you this: Johnny Long and his band has touched almost every member of this county and this part of the state. They either had been to a football game and seen them, been to a parade, Christmas parade, or Chamber of Commerce parade, homecoming parades. I mean, just hundreds and hundreds of and thousands of people have at least seen or heard of the Sound of the South Band in this part of the country.
And you talk about those bus trips. Think about all the time those band kids spent in the bus together on those long trips. So, I mean, that's just another opportunity for them to become I think a lot of these band students end up getting married, or they become lifelong friends.
Well, let me tell you how he got the exposure. Almost every Sunday back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, and 80s, the Sound of the South would appear on national television at a Dallas Cowboy game. We went to Miami all the time for a Miami Dolphin game.
Atlanta Falcons
game. Let's see, Tennessee didn't have one at the time.
New Orleans Saints, maybe.
They loved to go to New Orleans, and every year he would make sure that his band had someplace famous to go or enjoyable to go. Like almost every year, if we played down in Louisiana or Texas or wherever, he would pull in with 8 to 10 buses in New Orleans, and he'd let them spend the night. And let me tell you, he told them to be ready to get on the bus the next day. He never did tell them what time they had to go to bed. He let them stay out all night long.
They could have fun and get some memories.
I mean, he understood how kids were, and he thought like they thought, and of course,
Did he come up with the name The Sound of the South, or was that before?
I'm sure he did. Yeah, no, it was him. It was him by far. The other band was just a Red Wave band. And,
he came up with the Sound of the South.
And the other band was good. Now that guy was good. Richard Melvin was a good band director, but nobody liked Johnny Long. Nobody. Like in Montgomery.
Somebody out there is listening today. Surely somebody will probably call in and want to talk.
Our phone number is 670-0052. I'd love to hear from you. Let me just say this, and nobody would love this more than Johnny Long. Now, he had an ego. All great people have an ego. He would love to know that, ladies and gentlemen, on this day, on February the 25th, 2020 is Johnny Long Day in Troy, Alabama on today in L.A. So, hey, call in and let's recognize Dr. Long over and over. We're not going to be able to keep you on the line long because we want more and more people to be on the air. But and just tell a story about Johnny Long and what he meant to you. And I know all of our mayors and council members and county commissioners, everybody. When I say this, I don't mean it literally, but it would just put Johnny Long on a pedestal. Don't you agree? He was on a pedestal like his band was.
Oh yeah, he's a legend.
And we do appreciate his legacy. And I'll tell you this: he was a dear friend of mine. I just loved him to death, and he's gone now, but will never be forgotten.
Well, you say who loves Troy and Troy University more than Mike Amos? Well, the only possible answer might be Dr. Johnny Long.
Oh, there's a lot of folks. And of course, we're proud of him, of what he's done.
Big news in sports, Joe Burrow's hands measured only at 9 inches. So Joe Burrow's quarterback at LSU's hand is only 9 inches. So.
Well, you know, the big news is Cochran is going to what? Does he think it's greener pastures in Georgia?
Well, I mean, him and Kirby, they said we're best friends in Tuscaloosa.
Hey.
Did supper clubs and their wives were close. I mean, this was expected actually when Kirby got the Georgia job, so I'm not surprised by this.
But what I'm surprised about is he's not going as strength and conditioning coach. He's going to special teams,
as an actual
on field.
Coach, yeah.
He wants to be a head coach one day. I mean, I heard him speak not too long ago. I mean, he's an impressive guy.
Yeah, he is. You know, and of course he's a fired up, guy. And he believes in getting everybody fired up and ready to go and all that. And they're going to try to probably find somebody just like him to come in there and fire folks up.
I mean, Alabama fans are complaining about all the injuries Alabama's had the last couple of years, but that has nothing to do with Cochran. I mean, that's just freak injury.
You know what he taught that a lot of people do not teach? He teaches jumping rope. That 350-pound tackle, he has that guy jumping rope.
You know, I
great agility.
I think they've stopped it now, but I did hear at one time they did this drill where they're constantly people were jumping up on these blocks and then jumping down. And several Alabama players hurt their feet or ankles doing that drill, and surely they've stopped it.
I'll just tell you this.
He's a guy that will definitely be a huge factor for Georgia. I mean, he's a motivator.
Get fired up. You're right.
Here's my one concern.
Kirby wants to bring toughness to Georgia. He just did it yesterday.
Here's my one concern with this news, and I appreciate everything Coach Cochran did for Alabama. Has he decided that Alabama and Coach Saban have peaked, and now is the time to go somewhere else? I don't think so. I think this is just going to reinvigorate Coach Saban, and he can find another great strength coach.
I think he can.
But if somebody that close to the program has said, you know what, Alabama's on their slow, gradual decline from here on out, that would kind of cause me a little alarm.
Well, let me tell you this.
I think Saban wins one more national championship, and that breaks Bear's record, and he's the greatest of all time after that. I think he's done. He'll
coach till he dies or till they tell him to resign. Hey, listen, we're talking about one of the biggest egos to ever hit the sports field is Nick Saban. But let me tell you this. All this jumping up and down, this hoorah, jumping up and down. And, nobody's ever accused me of not being a jumping up and down type guy. I believe you got to get
enthusiasm.
But all this jumping up and down, you notice that they've got all the red shirts would come out there. They let all the red shirts and
on the sidelines doing that stuff.
And the backup guys, and they've got shirts on, and they look like, and they're jumping up and down. You notice they're doing that all across America now, and he started it. You know that? He started that, Mike.
Well, he was making $600,000 a year. So
you serious?
I think he's going to make $700,000 at least in Georgia.
Yeah.
All about hooping and hollering.
He's replacing Scott Fountain. Of course, Scott Fountain is Hugh Fountain's brother, and he's pretty famous for a play at Auburn.
Oh, wow. Oh, so I didn't know Coach Fountain's brother was at Georgia. Well, I hope he's still got a
But
job.
he's left now, though. He got another job, didn't he?
Yeah, he went to take a position in Arkansas under Sam Pittman.
Yeah, that's good.
Or Coach Fountain's brother is rolling in the cash if he's an assistant.
Well, you know,
coach
he was the one that says, Coach, do you want to put somebody back there, Coach, just in case? You want to put somebody back there, Coach, just in case? Get somebody, Coach Fountain. And he said, get back in there, and if the ball's short, take it and run it back for a touchdown. That's exactly what it is.
They're probably laughing on the sideline, looking out there and seeing Alabama had all the linemen on the field except, what do they have, one tight end maybe?
Yeah, the holder was the fastest guy on the field.
I would say that
Alabama had no athletes on the field whatsoever on that play.
I would say that Coach Fountain deserves $1 million bonus for that one coaching move he made right there.
Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn is going to win the football game. War Eagle. War Eagle. Auburn is going to win the football game. He goes down the line, and then this little guy's going to try to get him, but he's just not fast enough. Auburn is going to win the football game. We'll be back to more of Today in L.A. in just a moment.
Sit back and relax. Here's the
Trojan Auto Parts of Troy, home of Napa Know-How. Stop by and see owners Mike and Melissa Kilcrease and their Napa Know-How team with over 100 years of combined experience. We're the only locally owned parts store in Pike County, and we're fully stocked and ready to serve you. We pride ourselves on being your go-to parts store, not only for the simple items, but we specialize in those hard-to-find items as well. Trojan Auto Parts, the right part at the right price at the right time. Napa, a name you've trusted here in Troy since 1945.
Big discounts, big selection, and really big deals. It's the big pre-owned sale. Only at Premier Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Pre-owned vehicles start at $29.95. Over 50 vehicles under $15,000. $29 down. And you can drive today or take advantage of payments starting at $99 a month. That's $29 down. And payments starting as low as $99. From Montgomery to Dothan, the best pre-owned deal are at Premier Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram or online at PremierChrysler.com. Nobody beats a Premier deal. Nobody.
Great.
All right. We just saw the band.
And, ladies and gentlemen, if that will not ring your bell, what will? And that was the old Johnny Long, one of his older bands that he directed, and of course, that music lives on. We're going to play some other music during this part of our show, and Steve, appreciate you doing that, picking that up and everything, and there's just nothing like the sound of the South, especially when it was directed by the great one, Dr. John M. Long, and Mary Lynn and John Jr. and all the family. We're so saddened by the news of his death. But let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen.
You got to celebrate his life.
That's exactly right. We're celebrating the life of Dr. Johnny Long, and I made a prediction, Mike, and I know, gosh, I don't mean to be silly or non-respectful of anybody, but it would not surprise me that this will be the largest funeral procession in Troy, Alabama history. I just think that many people will come back and give their respect to the great one, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. John M. Long.
Look at it, he was the band director for 30 years, and he had
Oh, man.
250 to 300 people in the band a year. Yeah, you would think that would be the case.
That's right. And just out of respect, I mean, people from Montgomery would. What I'm saying, it's going to be a great group of people that have come to celebrate the life of a great man, Dr. Johnny Long.
I remember when Coach Bryant died, and I was a senior in high school. And, you know, I would say that just about every player that ever played for Coach Bryant or was around him as an assistant coach, you know, they came back for that funeral.
And you know something, too, about that, and I've got the albums and so forth, you know, to show that when Coach Bryant died, they lined up the streets of the interstate back to Birmingham because, you know, they buried, the funeral was held in Tuscaloosa, but the funeral graveside was in Birmingham. And there were just huge lines lining the streets for miles and miles and miles. And the bridge,
for 60 miles between Tuscaloosa and Birmingham.
And it was just so humble. So, I mean, if you don't want to dry anywhere, but it was just a great tribute to a great man like this will be to Dr. John Long. I know I'm being very, very premature. I don't know any of the plans or anything, but let me tell you this, he would love it. He would love it. And he would love it in a genuine way.
Did you go to the funeral of Coach Bryant with your dad? Did you and your brothers go?
No, I remember my dad went. He had been sick and had bad laryngitis, but he went. And you know what I remember about that is I've done research for this book I want to write about the life after Coach Bryant in Tuscaloosa, and there were at least 250,000 people that lined that highway and overpasses, which was. You know, I would say, I don't know what the death of Elvis Presley, how many people came out after that, or Martin Luther King, or they said that FDR's death.
No, I wouldn't compare it with anything like that.
But I'm just talking about the number of people that came out for the funeral procession. You know,
to be a part of it, or to say that 30 years later I was there. You know, I tell you this, I'm gonna tell you this, wherever it is, I'm going to be there. I am going to be there because it will be a spectacle with class. Man, he did everything with class. You didn't see no poor production that he had anything to do with anywhere, you know. And man, you ought to say he led the singing at Baraka. Not at Baraka, but because he was a Methodist, he taught Sunday school over at the First Methodist Church. But at Rotary, we would sing R-O-T-A-R-Y. That spells Rotary. Mm-hmm. And he would lead that song every Rotary meeting, and he was a fixture doing that, and that's something that he'll always be remembered as a great Rotarian too. And everything he did, and everything he touched, was just out of sight. And ladies and gentlemen, we're celebrating this morning, as much as we are grieving, to the fact that Dr. John M. Long, the longtime band director at Troy University, and I want to say he was there for at least 50 years.
Let's talk about that, Mike, is how blessed Troy has been with its key leader. Troy University has been that its key leaders stay so long. First, you had Dr. Adams, who stayed almost a quarter century. Dr. Hawkins has now stayed longer than that. Nobody was here longer than Dr. Long. Don Maestri, long time here.
Yeah, over 30 years.
Chase Riddle, Larry Blakeney.
24 years.
And then a lot of key faculty members and administrators, long time. So that continuity has been so important to Troy.
Dr. Frank Ross Stewart. Dr. Stewart did not stay here. In fact, I think he died while he was in office. I think he died of a heart attack while he was in office.
Well, I can think about people that I grew up with whose friends, whose parents worked for Troy, like Dr. Ed Barnett. He was there forever.
He was a great man, too.
Danny Lee's daddy, Mr. Lee.
Just died recently, no question.
They're all.
Fred Davis there.
Fred Davis was a great Troy guy, man. He did a wonderful job. A graduate of University of Georgia. He was an English professor, and he was on the athletic policy committee at Troy for years.
You know,
Robert Earl Stewart.
Phil Kelly sings all over town.
The great Phil Kelly, and he loved Dr. Long.
He sang recently at First Methodist Church, but gosh, he's been in Troy forever, and he's such a talented man.
I'll tell you this, and I'm sure
he was my favorite teacher in college.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. Hey, you take him, and he gave my son an A. You're right.
Dr. Tanner,
that we could go over and over. We'd probably be opening up a can of worms because we're gonna miss somebody, But and Ball Ralph might have been there longer than everybody. The little guy that walks around, he's in the music department too. He worked there for years and years and years.
Yeah, my favorite thing about the Sound of the South is I'd come watch them play, and I'd come watch them play about 10 years later, and some of the same people would still be in the band.
Oh yeah, there's some people. Samuel Frederick.
Some people never left college.
And I will try to get Samuel Frederick on our show tomorrow. He's been with Dr. Long for years, and he's a local guy, born on Sun Street, right up the street from my Aunt Emmylou Renfro, and right next door to Cora Mae Grimes. And the great Samuel Frederick, he claimed, and he said it so many times, that Samuel Frederick was the greatest drummer to ever live. He said that several times.
I'm thinking of during Dr. Long's tenure, the average band size, let's say it's 250 people.
Something like that.
But then you multiply it times 27 or 30 years that he was band director. Think of that's just thousands and thousands and thousands. I wonder how many names he could remember.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we're working on that great song, The Stars and Stripes Forever, that Dr. Long and John Philip Sousa, everybody, the greatest band director of all time, but the next greatest band director of all time was the great John M. Long, and he conducted that song, and we told you earlier that he took that song to Washington and says, President Reagan, this needs to be our nation's song, and sure enough, The Stars and Stripes Forever is our national.
My favorite part is when the band had the big guy that would, I don't know if he played tuba or what instrument he played, but he'd come out and sing. The big guy that was such a good singer.
Exactly. I'll tell you something else that they did too. They played the Temptations, Mike. The Temptations played in front of the band at halftime. You remember that?
Oh yeah, I was at that game.
And then the great Texas country singer, what's his name? He was there in front of the band.
Brad Paisley?
Brad Paisley. He was there too. Steve, just whenever you've got something, we'd love to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, we're honoring Dr. John M. Long today, and we'll do it tomorrow too, I'm sure. What?
It's going to be interesting to find out like an actual total of band directors that came out of the Johnny Long era. I mean, I would like to get that number.
Or students that were in the band during his tenure, which is just thousands and thousands and thousands.
Let me just say,
surely somebody could call in and let us know how long he was there as the band director.
And anybody that has anything to do with the plans and what's going to happen at the funeral need to realize that Dr. Long would love it. He would love it. The more people that are involved and the more music that's involved. It could be. That's why I think the stadium might be where you want to do it, because I could just see thousands of people coming.
Well, the weather would be iffy.
All this rain, you got to check the weather,
Yeah, but hey, let me tell you this. They come in rain or shine. You watch. They'll come rain or shine for the great one. The great one is down and is with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ in heaven as we speak. We'll be back to more of Today in L.A. after this.
What have we said wrong?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we apologize if we spoke while that was being done, because that was another.
Sometimes we forget if something's playing on the screen that maybe our microphones are still.
That's right, no question about it. Of course, I want to mention Pike County boys. They're in Birmingham playing for the state championship in the first round of the Final Four. Pike County 22-6 plays Hanceville 18-12. That's at 10:30 today. You'd have to hurry to get there in time. Hale County 18-10 playing Lauderdale County. Pike County will play the winner if they advance of that game at 2:15 on Friday. And then the Charles Henderson girls in Class 3A are 27-0, and they'll play Center Point of Birmingham 23-5 Wednesday at 3 p.m. So tomorrow at 3 p.m. From the Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center, you'll have Charles Henderson and Center Point. On the other Final Four game in 3A, you have Shelby County 27-4 versus Madison Academy out of Huntsville 30-4. Those are two worthy opponents. That will be at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, and then the championship game. Let's see, will be played at 9 o'clock on Saturday. Why in the world do they make that happen, Mike? That's crazy. How do they expect somebody from Troy to drive, unless they spend a night, they'd have to get up at 5 o'clock to make it to the game.
All these games are on TV, but it's some television station out of Sylacauga that's carrying it. I don't know if you can even pick the games up in Troy.
Well, it's whether a local affiliate somewhere would decide to pick it up. A WSFA or WAKA would choose to run it or not.
Yeah, the Alabama High School Athletic Association, their coverage of sporting events is awful. That's something they definitely need to improve on.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the high school's basketball championships. Barber County in 2A boys played yesterday. They win or they lose, Mike? Do you know?
I'd have to look and see.
They were 25-10, but they played Lafayette, who was 31-0, and they played on Monday. I don't know. I don't see. And then they're gonna play their championship on Friday.
Oh, Mike, I can tell you. Ask me what I did last night.
What did you do?
I took to give Mama a break. I took Maggie and Jack to a restaurant, and I was thinking about you and one of our advertisers, and you were always bragging about those French fries at Goldfinger's.
That's right.
And I said, we're going to Goldfinger's. And, man, it was a huge hit.
Did you enjoy that?
Oh, yeah. Great.
And, they specialize in chicken, but they also have great hamburgers and French fries.
I had a chicken sandwich and the French fries. And the KDs, my wife was a KD, they were having some fundraiser where 30% of the proceeds went to their philanthropy.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of Kappa Deltas that were there as well.
Of course, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tuesday, and we appreciate you watching our show today. And, of course, we honor the memory of the great John M. Long, who died last night right here in Troy, and Mary Lynn and John Jr. and the daughter. Our prayers and thoughts are with you today. Well, you're talking about these great places to eat. Have you noticed that there's a new store that's carrying shrimp now?
No, I know everybody loves shrimp. Or a lot of people love shrimp.
Did you know that, Mike?
No.
Oh, there's a new seafood market, you're saying?
No. Your favorite...
You told me
Popeye's got shrimp now. At least that's why they advertise them on TV shows.
I mean, if you want a shrimp, can you just go to Cafe's across the street?
And let me tell you something else, ladies and gentlemen. And I love being the first person to tell you about something. They about filled up this new shopping center, Mike. There's several stores coming to Troy. If it'll stop raining, they can't finish it up because they're in a mud bath every day.
Yeah. I heard yesterday somebody called into a show and said in the state of Alabama and Florida in the last 50 days, it's rained at least 49 of those 50 days.
That is unreal.
Somewhere in Florida.
It's been really rough, no question about it.
I wonder if that's a record.
What now, Mike? I didn't hear you.
I went out yesterday and bought some waterproof shoes yesterday because it's been raining so much.
Yeah, no question about it.
Our family loves Johnny Cash, and so I'm always playing Johnny Cash for the kids. And one of my favorite songs is "How High Is the Water, Mama?"
Yeah, 15,
3 feet high and rising. But my favorite line in that song is it's a little throwaway line that Johnny Cash throws in there. He says, "Looks like we'll be blessed with a little more rain, 4 feet high and rising."
Some of my great.
And so for the last 2 months, every day I'm in the car with my kids, I say, "Looks like we'll be blessed with a little more rain."
Yeah. One of the great one-liners is, "And when we get behind closed doors."
Oh, now that's not for Troy Cable viewers to hear.
Why? Behind closed doors?
Hey, tell us what you said about
Hey, Mike, that means when you shut the doors, you start talking about the real deal. Life. You know how a lot of people, before they get behind doors, they're just living a false life, and then when they get home, they start arguing and fussing and raising Cain at each other.
I still think.
Here's your matchups today in Birmingham. You got Pittsburgh at 29-3 versus Pike Road 28-4. That game will be at 9 a.m. Then you have later in the day the girls matchup will be Lauderdale County 29-5 against T.R. Miller 27-1.
Oh boy.
This matchup will be Hansel 18-12 against Pike County, the Bulldogs 22-6, 10:30 a.m.
And Pike County.
And Lauderdale County 25-7 will face Hell County 18-10. So that's hopefully Pike County wins today, and they'll play the winner of the Lauderdale County Hell County game for the state championship.
Going for their first ever state championship in the sport besides football. That's history in the making, possibly.
Yeah, and let me just say this. Let's see how well y'all know this state. Hell County is located in what county? What town? What town?
It's right outside Tuscaloosa County. It borders right on.
I know y'all don't know though. Y'all don't know the county. What county does what town does Hell County? Greensboro, you got it.
Hale County High School is what you're
All right.
That's like saying who's buried in Grant's tomb.
I lived in Tuscaloosa and traveled those roads for many a day.
All right, let me ask this. What are they famous for?
Greensboro?
Famous for Mountville.
No, it's something they produce. What is Greensboro?
Catfish.
That's the catfish capital of the world.
Well, Mountville's pretty famous too.
They have those Indian mounds there.
Yeah, I flew over them one time. When I was the editor at Montgomery Independent, some environmentalist group wanted us to do a story on all the clear cutting in Alabama.
Yeah.
And he said, "I'll take you on the ride across Central and West Alabama if you do a story for us." And I said, "Shoot, yeah, I'd like to see what Central and West Alabama looks like from there." So for 3 hours, I flew over and saw all this clear cutting, but I also, for the first time ever, saw those mounds in Moundville.
Yeah, no question.
Tuscaloosa County is a huge county.
Yeah, it is. No question about it. Of course, we're looking at Elba's girls dropped to Spring Garden, and Spring Garden's one of those North Alabama teams that's so good.
Yeah, they were 33-2, so that's not a surprise there.
And another one that is really good is in 5A. You've got for 5A girls, you got Hazel Green. They're always good. Now they're located outside of Huntsville, just right outside. It used to be a long ways to Hazel Green, but Huntsville's grown so much.
You seem like you got a good understanding of North Alabama. I haven't really explored large parts of our North Alabama state.
Let me say I've been to every incorporated town in the state at one time or another. And I'm proud to say that. But Hazel Green, they're 33-2 against Opelika, 27-6. And then the other girls bracket in that 6A is Northridge 23-12 and McAdory 27-7. A lot of people think this Charles Henderson team might be the best team of all in all classifications, but I would think that these 7A teams are pretty good too. Wouldn't you think?
Here's what happened yesterday. If you want to hear scores.
All right.
Yeah, the girls Spring Garden beat Iowa 56-35. The Lynette boys beat Jacksonville Christian 70-61. The girls at St. Luke's won at the buzzer against Mars Hill 60-58. Pickens County won 63-57 over Francis Marion. Collinsville 52, GW Long 39 in girls action. And the boys game was the shocker of all shockers. Barber County wins 64-62 over Lafayette.
Whoa! And Lafayette had won 30-something straight games. Man, oh man.
24-11. So,
Yay,
that's
for Barber County.
your scores. Also, yesterday, you had the girls Cold Spring 61-46 over Central Hayneville. And then, in boys action, apparently Callahan's got one of the best point guards in the state, this kid at Callahan.
Oh, yeah, he got 40 the other night.
They beat Red Bay 46-30, so that's your scores from yesterday.
Boy, what a upset Lafayette out of what county do y'all know? Chambers County. Was beaten by Barber County. Barber County of Clayton, Alabama. Did y'all know that? No, Louisville.
You know what? I'm not going to
Barber
ask.
County is located in Louisville, Alabama.
Don't do it on the air, but I bet you could almost go 1 through 67 of the counties in Alabama that are on the license plate tags and name them almost in
I'm not real
order.
good about that.
No.
I'm pretty good, but not real good. But a lot of
My
people
brother
are.
Rush can do that.
Yeah.
He's got a great memory and.
You know, and I'm not trying to brag, but a lot of people think that Barber County High School is located in Clayton, Alabama, but no, they're actually located in Louisville, Alabama. The county school is located there in Louisville. I used to officiate. In fact, that was the first place I ever officiated a basketball game.
Yeah.
Was that game, and I think I went with Scotty.
You go from Brundage to Clio to Louisville.
That's right. And then Clayton on the other side.
Yeah.
And one great man, two great men were born in Clayton, Alabama. Who were they?
George Wallace.
George Wallace.
And Jerry Beasley.
Jerry Beasley, you got it. You're going to win a cup of coffee today from McDonald's. Just tell them to put it on my tab.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
I hope you're enjoying our show, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking back and forth. We're honoring Dr. Johnny Long, and we will definitely, I'm going to try to get some people on our show tomorrow to come in and talk about Johnny Long and what he did for the band programs across the country, how his influenced more bands maybe than any one band director in the country.
And
You remember back in the old days, when they came out on the field, they ran out on the field.
Yeah,
You remember that? And they, do you know who the first band drum major was at for the Sound of the South? Do you know?
that's a good trivia question.
Well, he's from Troy. Do you know who the
Dr. Long's first drum major in the
his
Sound of the South.
first drum major in the Sound of the South? And he was a guy that went to Charles Simpson High School, and he used to run on the field with his head was almost touching the ground. He would be shuffling his legs so strong. You know?
No.
Mike Jordan. Mike Jordan from Troy, Alabama, was Johnny Long's first band drum major
Wow.
at Troy University. And he's still very influential. I might try to get
How
him
did you
on.
become the drum major? Did Dr. Long appoint you, or was there a tryout or selection process or a vote? Or
I don't know if it's a tryout or nothing, but I tell you, it's got to be about leadership. He wanted somebody that could lead the band, and Mike was that kind of guy. Mike was one of the great drum majors of all time. Of course, every one of his drum majors were skilled and were really. Let's go to our phones. Good morning, you're on Today in LA. How you doing? Hello. Hello. You're on Today in LA. Good morning.
Hey, Mike, Will Matthews.
Will Matthews calling from Ozark, and he probably doesn't have an idea at all about the sound of the South. But Johnny Long, have you ever heard of him?
Absolutely, yeah.
The great Johnny Long has died in Troy, and of course we've been talking about his life and what a great. Even Will, who's a very successful lawyer in Ozark, can remember the Sound of the South marching band at Troy University.
We had a lot of Ozark kids.
Yeah, you did. You're sure right.
Played in the band.
And Ozark had a good band for a long time too, didn't they?
They did. And Dr. Pete Mosley was the director for years. And Mike, they used to play in Macy's Parade, Orange Bowl.
Oh yeah, I knew they were popular. They could. But that was a great honor to play in Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Gosh, yeah, that's the ultimate. Or the Rose Bowl parade, if you ever got to play. I wonder if the Sound of the South ever made it into the Rose Bowl parade.
I don't know. That would be pretty expensive to do. Yeah. But Troy's band has never been in either one of those. I don't believe they've ever been in the Macy's. But they've been in the inaugural parades, though, a bunch of them.
Yep.
Presidential.
My daughter played in the Rose Bowl parade.
Yeah, in Alabama?
Yeah.
That's right. You sure did.
What did she play in the band?
She played the piccolo.
Oh, boy.
4 years.
You got to want to play the piccolo, don't you? It looks like a pipe, doesn't it? It's mahogany. Mahogany looks like a pipe, doesn't it? A bazooka. It looks like a bazooka, doesn't it?
You're thinking about a cornet.
No.
Piccolo is made out of gold.
Oh, all right, okay. We're talking to Will Matthews. Will, of course, we're saddened so much by losing a man like Dr. Johnny Long, but gosh, his legacy will move on and on. You know, you think great men come through Ozark, they were great leaders, you know, their legacy lives on, don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely, sure.
Well, what are we going to do about this virus? Are you keeping up with it at all?
Is this something that we need to worry about or not?
Oh, yeah.
What is Trump going to do about it?
Well, he just authorized $2 billion to go to help stop it. So.
What did you say just a while ago? That they.
Well, there have been more deaths in America, and they're worried about it spreading fast in South Korea. I'm not really worried about the number of deaths per se compared to the population at large, but I'm worried about the disruptions it would cause and is causing to the economy. I think that
right.
China has just come to a halt.
That's right.
And so you think about all the stuff we buy that comes from China. Like right now, we need a new coffee pot. Which is cheap as heck. You go to Walmart, but I told my wife, I said, you know, in a month or so, you might go to Walmart to get you a coffee pot, and there might not be a coffee pot
You
at
know,
Walmart.
these new coffee makers, Will. Do you drink coffee, Will?
I'm drinking coffee right now.
All right, but listen, I don't like those new coffee makers. I like a pot. Make me a pot of coffee. That's the kind of coffee I want. I want it to be Maxwell House, and I'm content. I don't need all that other stuff. You know what? I drink more hot chocolate with that new device than I do coffee.
You're Keurig?
Yeah, I drink more. Well, no, but I would rather have a pot of coffee.
I'm addicted to it.
But you know what? I'll drink anything Steve Camp makes.
I hope you're drinking sugar-free coffee.
Yeah, oh yeah, I am that. I don't put sugar in anything, really.
Yeah, I eliminated sugar about 2 decades ago. That was a good thing I did.
Of course, Will Matthews is on the phone with us, and from Ozark this morning, and Mike had to take his kids to school.
Well, let me ask Will another question. What do you think? You think the loss of Cochran as Alabama's strength and conditioning coach will negatively affect Alabama?
I don't think so. You know, everybody's making a big deal of it, but Scott Cochran and Kirby are best friends.
That's why we heard.
He's waited this long to go, you know, but they've been evidently put his blessing on it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, he started all the hoorah stuff, the jumping up and down and all that, you know, and, you know, all these, you know, but I tell you what, he gives these walk-ons and these people like that something to do during the game. They put them in a T-shirt, and they get them jumping up and down.
He's a good motivator too.
Yeah, no question about it. And he played in jump rope.
I'll tell you what, he became the most famous strength and conditioning coach in America. That's for sure.
No question about it.
He's by far the highest paid one.
I heard somebody say that Iowa and some other school actually pay their strength and conditioning coach more. I was surprised to learn that.
Oh, I know it. Me too. No question about it.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you have enjoyed today's show, and of course we appreciate Steve and up top of giving us some music, and we're going to leave today with some music from the Sound of the South when Dr. Johnny Long was the head what do they call them? Maestros? Maestros. And boy, what a great one he was. And ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow on this show, we hope to have some people that were in the Sound of the South and can tell stories about the great Johnny Long. And of course, we'll be giving you more and more information on when that funeral is going to be and where it's going to be. And I'm going to be there wherever it's going to be. I'm going to be there with my good friend, the late, great Johnny Long. We'll see you tomorrow, bright and early. You can watch this show again at 1:30. We'd love for you to watch. And, of course, we'll see you tomorrow, bright and early in the morning at 7 o'clock for Today in L.A.
Sit back and relax.